So, actual horror. We got that coming up with this movie right here. See it?
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
Well, long story short, one of the first comments that I got on my review for The Grudge, which was as I went over in glorious detail, a very bad movie and a bad horror movie in general, I got a request, I put a notice out there saying if there were any movies that you wanted me to review, or to see and then review, go ahead. First request I got, an actually good horror movie, Hereditary, which came out in 2018 and was written and directed by Ari Aster. His main credits that you would know him for would be for Hereditary and the other Midsommar, which I'm not gonna lie, I still haven't worked up the courage to watch it because it just looks like it's gonna give me an anxiety attack. Here I am to talk about this movie at hand, Hereditary. Now, I don't know if I'm very qualified to talk about a film that's so horrific and artsy. Wait, hang on a second. Okay, there we go. So Hereditary was a movie that came out in 2018. I actually managed to catch this one in theaters when it did come out. I'm pretty sure the weekend of, mainly because I was drawn in by what I thought was very successful marketing on its part. So A24, if you haven't heard of this company, they've been producing movies for a while now and basically kind of like producing, publishing, pushing these things out. So Ari Aster comes in to direct and write this, turns out, and it actually is a pretty legitimate horror movie overall. So we already have a good stellar cast to work with for this film. We've got Toni Collette, we've got Millie Shapiro, Gabriel Byrne, and Alex Wolff. Though if I'm being 100% real and honest with you guys and gals, our two shining stars in this film, hands down, are Toni Collette and Alex Wolff. I mean, Toni Collette, she kills it in anything that she's in. She's a phenomenal actor.
I say actor, not actress, because the word actress is nonsensical.
And Alex Wolff does a great job as just a traumatized kid throughout most of this film, or a teenager rather, but I'll cut to the chase. Hereditary is a really great film overall. I was unsure how I felt about it at first when I saw it in theaters, and then I ended up buying it on Blu-ray at some point because I liked it enough to buy it on Blu-ray. When I saw it in the theaters, I wasn't necessarily scared during any parts of the film, but I believe the better term would be unsettled. This film, for all intents and purposes, is an immensely unsettling film and very jarring, very, very dark film. After receiving the newest request and comments to go ahead and review Hereditary, I'd seen it before, but I hadn't seen it since it came out, so it's been nearly 2 years since I saw it. So I went ahead and sat down this morning, watched it again, and kind of just going into it with new eyes, for lack of a better term. Like, it's kind of like when you watch Shutter Island for a second or third time. You catch all the little nuances and all the hints in the writing and the directing, and Hereditary is no exception. There are a lot of things that I noticed upon a second viewing that gave me a greater appreciation and understanding of the material and the writing and whatnot. So the way that it was filmed, shot, directed, composed, fantastic. It's shot very well, I believe, and I always appreciate a film that can tell a story with nuance and subtlety. That's something that I really look for in a film, because it's easy enough to just give you scenes in a film, especially like a horror film or something with a complex plot, where you could just have expository dumps telling you what's going on in the plot. It's not a logical way to get the information across to you. It's just kind of odd, it's misplaced, it's purely there only for the audience, which arguably films are all for the audience, but at the same time, you want a certain level of detachment from the film. You want to be able to get into it, but you want the film, it's the show don't tell policy basically, and Hereditary does a lot of this. It will show you, but not overtly tell you. What I like a lot about Hereditary, and it seems to be Ari Aster's directing style, is to do just that, and you get to figure it out, or you get to like kind of piece things together, or take with it what you're going to end up interpreting everything as. Then, of course, we have the acting. And as I said before, Toni Collette is a powerhouse of an actor. I mean, there are some very, very uncomfortable scenes in this film. Not even because there's like something horrific is happening per se, but just the setting, the situation, the dialogue, and the emotions between characters. This film is very well acted, and the cast in it do an exceptional job with the material they have at hand, and it feels almost too real and too human. And in some ways, the conversations and the feelings they have, both Toni Collette as a mother and a grieving one at that, is just, it's almost too real. It's almost like super depressing how real it is. The movie's been out for almost 2 years. I don't really want to... I'm gonna spoil some stuff, so I'll put up a timestamp here that'll cut through the spoilers that I'll kind of talk through. So if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend going to see it, or checking it out, renting it before you listen to the rest of this. But otherwise, here we go. One of my favorite things about this film is that it completely subverted my expectations. The trailers marketed this film as Hereditary. We have Toni Collette, but we have this creepy girl, Millie Shapiro's character. We have this creepy girl, Charlie, who keeps doing this whole, like, thing, and the movie's trailers made it seem as if the entire plot centered specifically around her, which, yes, the movie does, but they made it seem as if she was going to be a physical presence on screen. And then they completely pull your pants down about a half an hour through, and they, like I said, spoilers, and they just kill her off out of nowhere. Like, did not see it coming. It's so sudden and jarring, and it's one of the best. There's some great scenes in this movie. This is one of the best scenes in the entire movie. In the whole movie, you keep, like, wanting these characters to get help, but then you're like, you want to assign blame, but you get, that there's still some innocence here and there, and he was just a teenager, made a stupid decision, and it resulted in a terrible tragedy, X, Y, and Z, and you want all the characters to get help, because they seem like they want to be good, decent people, but of course it's horror, so no one's going to get help, they're all just going to suffer. Alright, so some of the spoilers aside, get back into the film. The writing's great, acting, how it's shot and written, it's all well and good. The story is definitely there, and I think that's the only part that I just wish had a little bit more oomph to it, a little bit more gusto. The story is very strong, and when as the story unravels and the narrative is revealed over the course of the film, I followed all of it, as I think a lot of people did. I think for a lot of, like, your average movie-going audience, when it gets to the end of the third act and things really start going off the rails, in a good way, but for your average audience, they're like, oh, it's a little bit too much for me. It's kind of like the end of The Lighthouse. I'm not going to spoil The Lighthouse, but I distinctly recall the last scenes of The Lighthouse, literally a sizable group of people in the theater got up and walked out before the movie even ended. It's one of those films where if you're not in for a penny, you're definitely not going to be in for the whole pound. So for me, I liked it, but I can't quite point what it is, but there was just something missing for me with the story of Midsommar. There's just like one more added layer that I would have liked, and it isn't very fair because this affects my overall review of the film, as you'll find out in a second. And I really wish I could put my finger on it, but when I walked out of that film, I didn't feel like, oh my god, one of the best films of 2018. I love that so much. I had a minor sense of just dissatisfaction, I suppose you could say. Like, I was unnerved and I enjoyed myself in the film, but there was just something missing and I can't quite pinpoint it. And I feel terrible for it, but just, it's my personal opinion. So, without further ado, I'll get down to the nitty-gritty of it. So, I would give this film a solid 4 out of 5. Like, it's kind of, on my scale, it's near perfection. And after a second viewing, I've more than grown to appreciate it. Both in its, like I said, direction, composition, writing, story, characters. It's all there. Not to keep dwelling on the past, but with The Grudge, none of that was there. The Grudge had just mediocre everything. Like, it was just a movie that was shot, written, done with what seemed like a very mediocre amount of effort. But this film, you could tell a lot of care, passion, and heart and effort. A lot of effort went into this, and there's so many moments and scenes in this movie that just stuck with me. And I still think about, to this day, there are scenes that have stayed with me, that whenever somebody brings it up, I know exactly what they're talking about. Whenever I think about recent modern horror films that have really impacted me or stayed with me for a while, I can't help but think about Hereditary to some degree. For you know who that asked, that's my overall opinion of it. Hereditary is a very, very, very great film. Borderline fantastic. Not quite perfection, I think, in my mind. I've seen horror movies that I like more than Hereditary, but it is definitely cream of the crop in terms of its competition. If you have been on the fence about seeing it, or if you want to see it, and you are a fan of very dark, well-acted, well-shot horror, then I 100% recommend you check out Hereditary. Going off of my very gut feeling when I first saw it, it didn't feel like perfection, but it felt pretty damn close. So again, 4 out of 5 is a good review for this movie in this situation, so please go check it out. As always, if you want me to review any other movies, like I said, they don't have to have come out this year or very recently. If you want, just comment below a movie that you'd like me to give my thoughts and opinions on, and I'll move forward from there. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching. That was my review of Hereditary. Stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie or television show I review, per your request or per my viewing. Yeah. Anyway, goodbye, travelers.